So for people that want to try the polygamous life, do you believe in it? I mean, do you think it can work for some people?
You know what? I think that if everybody is devoted, it could work. I've had conversations with people and they're like, no, it's never going to work. You know, it just doesn't work. Well, if you want it to work and if you're committed, everybody would have to be committed. If anybody is not committed, it's not going to work.
Right.
Like with anything, that's the case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And when you say committed or devoted, are you talking about to the faith and the religion and the
Even if you don't have, because I know people who live this lifestyle or a similar lifestyle, you know, polygamy or whatever. I don't know. I know there's a lot of terms for it, but and they do it without a religious background.
Okay.
And that's okay. If they're committed to it, I wish them all the best.
Right.
And I think it could. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm dumb or something, but I think that it could if you're committed to it.
And if there are boundaries and if there are, you know, people
Like
communicate probably.
Right. I think it comes to whatever boundaries, you know, and parameters that you create in your own lifestyle or in your own family structure and how you guys want to do it.
Yeah.
Because people do it different ways.
Sure. I mean, listen, I think there are people that believe, you know, the more, the better. For me, I could never, first of all, I don't understand any man that wants to date more than one woman at a time. We're nuts. We're crazy. We could be mean.
Why do they want to do it?
Yeah, it seems nuts. But then, you know, this is why I don't do threesomes or anything.
Right.
The jealousy, the self-esteem issues that could creep in, I can't function like that. So
it's definitely a thing. And, you know, like I said before, like I thought that I was bad for having some of those emotions just because it's kind of what you're taught to believe, that you're not supposed to feel like this. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, you know, in order to get to heaven or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like you're supposed to do this, which also means you're not supposed to have the emotions about it. Like, so you're bad if you're jealous.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it seems like human nature.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Yeah. And I won't stay on this topic, but I do just want to say that I know you have, you know tragedy, you know grief. And I want to ask you how you cope with it because, you know, you've been through a lot.
You know, it's different for every situation. The 7 siblings that I told you I have, I've lost 3 of them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the oldest one in my family now.
Yeah.
You know, both my parents are gone and 3 siblings are gone, you know, and every one of those losses and Garrison, you know what I mean? Like every single one of them hits different.
Yeah.
And you really have to do what you need to do in the moment.
Yeah.
Embrace the pain, cry when you need to, spend some time alone. And when you're feeling okay, to get up and take a walk or go, you know, go visit a friend or whatever. Do what you need to do when you need to do it. But when you need to take the time for yourself, take the time for yourself. And I think that people don't. I think that a lot of times people have how do I say this? I think a lot of times people have a box that they think that you should live in grief. Like it's not linear. It's like there's not a checklist.
Yeah.
It's all the emotions all the time and whenever they decide to pop up.
Right.
You know?
Sometimes delayed. I remember for me, because at the beginning when something happens, like a tragic death, everyone's around you at the beginning.
Yep.
And you have a lot of people you can reach out to, a lot of people who are upset and going through the same thing and want to ask questions and want to be there for you. And then it could be months later when you're finally alone, people have stopped calling and coming by.
Because they go back to their normal life.
Right. Then, I mean, I remember, you know, in certain circumstances, I would be in the shower and out of nowhere, I would start to cry hysterically because it's like the only time I'm alone and maybe I don't have things I'm thinking about and it just would happen. Or something, you know, I would see something and it would remind me, but I could be, you know, it could be months later. And I think that's when grief really sets in. And I have learned that, it's okay. It's okay to deal with it. It's okay to mourn and to cry, but not be stuck in it either. To try and remember like the good things and the good times, because so many people get stuck and almost die themselves.
Right.
I
think that, a lot of people will say you're gonna move past it. You're gonna move through it, and you will. But I think that there's this hole that is created. And people say, oh, that hole will fill up with
No,
whatever.
It never goes away.
The hole will always be there. What you're doing is creating a life around that.
Yeah.
The hole is always there.
Yeah.
You're going to have
100%.
other good things that are happening in your life, and they're going to fulfill you in different ways, but you're always going to have that hole.
Right. And how are Cody and Janelle after that?
I've talked to each of them, and, I think there's good days and bad days. I don't know how there couldn't be.
Yeah.
There's still times that I just, I'll see a picture of Garrison or something, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't like that this happened. It's really sad,
And to lose a child is worse than anything.
Yeah. And I just feel so much for Janelle.
Yeah.
I watched my mom lose 2 of her own kids before she passed. There's a third sibling after she passed, but it's
and that
tragic.
was hard on her. Yeah,
it's tragic.
When my father died, he was 44, and his mother, my grandmother, never recovered. She kind of stayed in bed for the rest of her life, and she lived till she was 80. So it was a very long time that she kind of just became a recluse in her home, and she was a vivacious, beautiful woman, and it just ruined her. And it was terrible. So, I mean, it affects people differently.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so I guess I want to ask, are you happy now?
I'm so happy.
Good. And for people that forget about what kind of marriage you're in or relationship, I think people want to know about the staying or the leaving. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, what would your advice be for people who are in these long-term relationships that don't know if there's happiness on the other side? What would your advice be?
I would say make sure that you're making the decision for you, and don't judge it and base it off of what other people say. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of people saying, "Why'd you stay so long?" It's like, because there was something in me that I needed to learn.
Sure.
I don't regret what I did. I don't regret the time that I spent, because I know who I am.
Right.
I know who I am now. 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Would have been the wrong time for you.
It would not have been the right time for me.
Yeah.
I don't regret it.
And when you did it, you were ready, is the point.
Yep.
Okay, so now can we talk about dating?
Yes.
Okay. So it became public that you were dating someone for a little bit of time. My first question about that is, how did you explain to him the type of marriage you had before?
Well, I just told him. I'm like, okay, so have you ever seen that show, Sister Wives?
Did he know who you were, though, before you mentioned that?
He didn't realize who I was until I told him.
Okay.
And I told him.
And then he's like, I've seen that.
Yeah, I've heard of that show. Oh, yeah, my daughter watches that show, or whatever, right? Here's the thing. We've been around long enough, even if a person isn't watching it all the time, they've probably heard of it.
Right. Even my 12-year-old daughter, when I told her last night I was coming to meet you, and I said your name, and she's like, and then I said this show. She goes, oh my God, which one? Can we put it on? Oh my God, that's so interesting. Yeah. So,
I was in the hotel the other day, and the kid at the counter, he's like, you're really familiar. And I'm like, probably TV. He's like, no. Did you work at this, or did you know this? And I'm like, no, it's probably TV. He's like, what? And I told him, and he goes, oh, my ex-girlfriend used to watch that show. I'm like, well, you should call her and tell her that you met me. He's like, yeah, probably won't be doing that.
Oh God, that's so funny.